There's a group of people on this planet who have hidden the truth from you for a very long time. They have a vision for your future that they know doesn't work unless they keep you in the dark about some things. Like the true nature of our spirituality, the truth about how our reality works, how each of us has the ability to choose and change it, individually, but especially when united. The truth about civilizations that rose and fell before our own. The truth that we are not alone on this planet and have never been. I'm Tim Bravo. Over years of searching, studying, synchronicities, and experience, I've discovered that the big picture of our reality is very different from the one that's been spoon-fed and programmed into us through school, religion, and mainstream media. We've been lulled into a hypnotic sleep, a nightmare really, conned into co-creating a world that doesn't come close to reflecting our true nature. I'm here to help others wake up, so we can work together as sisters and brothers to create a new vision for our future, and a world that works for all of us. This is Bravo New World. Good day, sisters and brothers of planet Earth. I'm Tim Bravo. Thanks for opening your hearts and minds today. I first learned of Amardeep Kaleka and his production company Never Ending Light when the first trailer for the upcoming film SIRIUS hit the internet. Like many of you, I've followed Dr. Stephen Greer's work with the Disclosure Project for years. The trailer, and everyone released since then, provides a very encouraging look at a film that could blow the doors open on UFO disclosure once and for all. I immediately followed Kaleka on Vimeo and signed up for SIRIUS updates. There was a lot of buzz about the movie due to its tremendous Kickstarter campaign. Amardeep Kaleka was a filmmaker poised to make crowdfunding history. Then, August 5th, 2012 came. News spread like wildfire that another mass shooting event had gone down in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. We were told a white supremacist PSYOPs Army veteran shot and killed 6 members of a Sikh congregation. And that's when the world outside the UFO disclosure community met Amardeep Kaleka. Because one of the victims, the founder of the temple, just happened to be Amardeep's dear father, Satwan Singh Kaleka. In a way, Amardeep became the face of this tragedy, granting interview after interview across major media. Now, with work on SIRIUS nearing completion, Never Ending Light has announced its next project, a film called Nursery Crimes, a documentary about violence in America and how we can come together to stop it. I've asked Amardeep to be my first guest and kick off these Bravo New World podcasts right. In the following interview, I hope you'll be able to listen past some internet audio issues to hear what Arm has to say. We're going to get an update on SIRIUS, hear some of the out-of-this-world experiences that have come his way as director of the film, and how the film's most recent trailer was received at the Sundance Film Festival. We'll get his take on what happened the day his father's temple was attacked, take a look at Nursery Crimes, and hopefully learn a bit about the person, the soul, that is our brother, Amardeep Kaleka. Amardeep, thanks a million for coming on and sharing with us.
Absolutely.
Now, how has your understanding of the UFO topic changed since working with Dr. Greer on this film?
I mean, came into the subject from the Ancient Aliens franchise, because we obviously started following them. It's funny because randomly I go to Apple Store here in LA and somebody will know me from SIRIUS now, and they'll ask me the same question. Say, what do you think about ancient alien theory? And it is an interesting aspect. That's where my fascination with it started. And then it kind of branched off, and as we start to see the disclosure tapes, we started to think about, is there information that secret societies have that they're holding back on? Are they using it for their own personal gains? What's going on? So I think, personally, the extraterrestrial questions and thoughts and the ideas, they've matured now more than ever to be as close to reality as I could get them, in terms of like having a year worth of research and talking to an amazing amount of people in interviews and getting down to the crux of it.
Awesome. Now, I got to ask you, though, have you ever had a UFO sighting of your own?
Interestingly enough, I've never had a UFO sighting before SIRIUS.
Have you since?
I have. As a matter of fact, it was on a C5 expedition
Ah.
And I wanted to reiterate, it was amazing. I mean, it's in the film. It's one of the first things you see in the film. We were in Colorado, Crestone, and it happened to me multiple times over that session. Something would talk to me as I was meditating, and I'd look up over my right shoulder where the whisper was coming, and I'd look up, and there was this thing floating to the sky. And it would be floating very slow in terms of like the way it is moving and progressing through the sky, that it would seem unnatural, like it was going to fall out of space, you know? And I mean, it definitely, I was riveted by it. There was emotional connection with, you know, the UFO.
So you actually had a telepathic communication, not just a sighting. That's pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome, and it was definitely me and the other camp person were sitting across from each other, and we have some sort of like voice talking to us. And you know the difference between you talking to yourself and something external.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like a call and response. You ask a question, it answers. And it asks you a question, you answer. And when you're answering, the next part of the answer from that side is coming. So it's a true back and forth. And what people in the field call going to channel one. So, you know, maybe beings from all over the universe can be in that specific channel at the same time as the chat room.
Interesting. And that's almost, to me, more just more astounding an experience than having a sighting. I mean, that's contact.
Well, that's what we're trying to get across with the film, because it's serious. It's not so much we have to search for physical truth and the evidence behind it. And we want to reiterate that most of the evidence that we can find points to the fact that people need to continue searching and need to figure out what's going on, because it's obviously something unknown to all of us.
I have to ask, were you there for the filming of the EBE in Spain?
You know, sadly, we were not allowed to go because of the contact with the people who own the EBE, or between Greer and those people. We were heartbroken, but also as a filmmaker, the whole point, I've always said this to Steve and all the people, and Steve has obviously been doing this for 20 years. He really lacks an objective viewpoint to see the situation from. And as a documentary filmmaker, that's all I can offer. Mm-hmm. I have no true agenda or need to push an agenda. I have no financial obligations. I have no reason other than finding out whether or not this is true. That's just a personal thing. And if I was there, I think, or if our team was there, obviously, I think we would have covered it tremendously better than the way it was covered. But also, we could be a lot more effective. Just the way the politics are going sometimes.
But Dr. Greer was able to be there. I'm pretty sure I saw him in the footage, right?
He was. Yeah, Dr. Greer was there. Jan Bravo was there. And Jan Bravo was an excellent, doctor.
Yeah. Now, we are still waiting on the results from the tissue samples, right?
We are, and hopefully within 2 weeks we'll get them. I can't give a firm deadline because just the way everything has always been playing out, but hopefully within 3 weeks we'll have some results. We'll be able to shoot and interview and do everything we need to do.
So other than getting those results in and finishing up the shooting that's related to that, is there anything else that we're waiting on as far as SIRIUS goes?
I'm waiting on a ton of stuff in terms of licensing and legal work because, as you know, we're trying to pull the clothes off the emperor, but that means that we're opening ourselves up to a ton of powers that we do, obviously, legal action. So we just have to dot our I's and cross our T's as well as we can and get over to the legal department that we work with as a production company to make sure that nobody comes back and says, hey, you're using that and you're using that, it's slanderous. And the closer you stick to the truth, the more the law is on your side.
Well, talking about possibly opening yourself up to some sorts of reaction or attacks from the powers that be, that kind of leads right into my next question, which is, have you received threats for working on this film?
I haven't personally received threats. I will say, randomly, the SIRIUS website keeps always getting knocked down. It gets knocked down probably once every 3 days. And we've done more hours a week than just keeping that one website up. We have in terms of all of our other websites, because it seems like something keeps knocking it out or changing, the stuff we have on it, replacing the code. That's kind of an annoying thing, but it happens quite often.
Well, it is interesting because I've noticed in the past that, and like tonight, my audio has been working just fine, and tonight we're dealing with some stuttering audio issues, and it just, I don't know, seems a little strange to me. And for you guys to have to constantly deal with the headaches of trying to keep that most important site online, I don't know. I think you raise a good point.
Thank you.
You know, it seems suspect. You can't say that it's definitely somebody messing with you, but you know, it certainly looks like that's a strong possibility.
No, totally. And so, after we did a lot of these interviews, we talk about it in the film, like obvious threats, like let's say what happened to Stanley Meyer.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of subtext and subconscious threats that happen all the time, or based on ridicule, or based on these little things, which are just technological glitches you can't point anything to. However, I do have to warn, because once your conspiracy radar starts going off, you'll start forming connections to things that are not connected. And you're drawing connections based on a lot of different gray areas where people misspeak or have a problem. And the best example I can give is the day that August 5th happened. I was, like trying to get to my dad, trying to get to my mom, trying to get to people that were inside the temple. And while I was there, like, people would keep pulling me away for an interview, and they would start to notice that I was on the phone with people inside the temple. So they would start listening in. And a good example of that is somebody pulled me over for an interview, and my idea was get out as much information as possible, because I'm the same type of person where I think transparency is the best policy.
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
It is the number one. So, like, when somebody would ask me, what have you heard? I would say, this is what I've heard. I've heard there's multiple people. I've heard such and such. And that's coming from, I've heard it's multiple people from inside the temple. Like, my mom was in the crouch and is hearing multiple footsteps. And she's hearing multiple footsteps because she's in such a frightening situation. She's drawing a conclusion that those footsteps are obviously not just one person.
Well, and I got to ask you about that, because there was a member of your dad's congregation who was on camera, and I wish I remembered the guy's name, but he said that there were 4 white male shooters. And the official story is there's just the one U.S. Army veteran who was a white supremacist.
I mean, it's definitely, I've never seen that interview. I've definitely sent it to me, because I think what happened was, in the midst of the chaos, and this is just the way small communities are, like, they're getting information, piecemealing it from text messages. Even the 911 operators are highly confused in the fact that we speak multiple languages, and even when somebody's speaking broken English, like, my dad was saying, like, there's somebody's opening fire, somebody's firing at the temple. And for us, like, our English translation to gunfire is firing, right? The 911 operator listened, and the language barrier presented a number of problems for everybody. Now, that specific person, I definitely would love to see the video, but I gotta believe they were speaking from a place where they thought they had information, just like I did, and they're trying to get it out to as many people as possible, so the case of transparency. However, after I walked that crime scene immediately on Friday morning when they opened it, and there was still blood on the walls and on the carpet. Luckily, we got in and were able to, like, help clean up. We had, like, a small detail of people that were coming to clean up so we could start the temple again. And you don't see multiple footsteps. You don't see multiple tracks. I have a degree in criminology. I can do a crime scene investigation better than most police officers. And I went through each area where there was a murder, and I could see if I did my crime scene investigation, how many shells were around, where they were, where the bullets that went through the body lodged, where the bullets that missed lodged, at what height the shooter was at what angle. It was, so I was physically in the vicinity. There were no other bloody footsteps running all over the place. There's just the one guy, and you can tell all of them missed shots at the same level in terms of the height.
Okay.
There's just, a ton of evidence.
So you believe the attack happened as it was related to the public through the media. You don't believe that there were multiple shooters, that it may have been a black op designed, for some other reason or reasons.
Absolutely, I do not think it was multiple shooters on scene. It's definitely tricky when we're discussing, like, black ops and psych ops and psyops, and whether or not certain secret society members have an ability to, let's say, control psychotronic weapons that gravitate around Earth's radius and are able to, like, set off asymmetrical people. I can't speak to that because I have no facts on that information. I can't say no or yes, but I will say that in the case of August 5th, it was one person. He was a white extremist. He was a former skinhead. He hated all people. If you were Jewish and there was a synagogue in the area that his girlfriend had, been in contact with, he would have attacked that. If it was a mosque, he would have attacked that. You just know that he hated other people. And I was like, well, that's far too simple of an answer, because why would he? I mean, you hate other people. You go 30 some years without killing somebody, and you're, a former military guy, and then you're set off in some way. So we're sort of trying to figure out, did you have a thing with somebody that was Punjabi? Did his, girlfriend have a run happen? But those are, it's far easier to believe that something like that happened. He just met somebody, they had a turn, and, they had a discussion that was not obviously favorable, and he came back and just went psycho. It's easier to think that that's true rather than it was a government conspiracy to stop me from continuing shooting SIRIUS. I think anybody in a place of power would know that happening on August 5th was giving me a bigger microphone to actually talk from. I don't think it's connected to the film project. I know Steve doesn't either. We've communicated about it so many times, and we've had to have that discussion because obviously there was a time where I thought about not continuing the production. That was one of the first things that jumped into my mind is, hey, this might possibly be something like that, where it's the government conspiracy. And after going through the information and being there, and that's what I encourage every SIRIUS supporter to do is, if you really want to know about extraterrestrials, go on a C5 with somebody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I have to say, if it were a black op that was designed to shy you away from continuing work on SIRIUS, then it would make sense to me that they would make sure that you knew about it before it happened. I guess my hypothesis I was working on was that, they were thinking, well, if we can't convince you, if you're not afraid of yourself getting hurt, then what about your family? And with all these shootings that we've had in the last year, there seems to have been somebody of significance in the immediate family. So that just kind of fit in a pattern to me. But if you say that you weren't contacted before and or after the shooting, then I have to say, yeah, it sounds to me like, you're on the right track, brother, that, this was just a really bad thing.
No, it totally was that. In fact, nobody ever contacted me before to raise the threat, and nobody contacted me after. And that's the biggest thing is nobody's going to spend that much time and energy to organize such a blatant, screw up like Newtown, and not be able to think out all the details in terms of, okay, in order to stop this, we threatened this guy before. And if he says no, we're going to maybe do a slight thing to we're going to slash his tires or throw a brick through his window. That costs no money, right? That costs me $50 to hire somebody to do that. Rather than go through this extravagant, conundrum of a conundrum and then hope that this guy gets the message. That's human psychology. And these guys are working on that level in terms of, think tanks. And I have a ton of friends who work on think tanks. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't lapse on that sort of thing. That's a normal thing. It's hey, see if this guy will back down to a basic phone call. That costs no money. Rather than going all the way to the extreme. So there's a ton of factors.
Well, I know that you've got a busy schedule, but before we go, I do want to talk about your new project, and that is Nursery Crimes. Can you kind of give us a bit about Nursery Crimes?
Absolutely. Nursery Crimes is a project that's near and dear to my heart. It's about violence in America and craziness that's been going on for the last probably 2 decades, but especially over the last, half a year or 9 months. I met a ton of people who survived Aura, Columbine, Virginia Tech, and I'm putting this group together who are really, really passionate about solving the violence problem. And we're going to go after big pharma. We're going to go after mental illnesses. We're going to go after gun regulations that are allowing people to sell arms to, inner city arms dealers. There's a ton of things that we're going to go after in the documentary that hopefully by the end of it, create a culture of peace in the country. And I guess the best way I can connect that to SIRIUS and the followers of SIRIUS are extraterrestrial civilizations. I believe at this point in time have learned how to become a peaceful and very organized culture. And I think we as a society will never join that club if we don't realize that peace is the best economic vehicle, it's the best intellectual vehicle, because if we create peace and we create prosperity for a number of people in our society who are at this point, shunned and put into amazing, horrible situations of violence at a young age, we might actually be able to form better relationships with extraterrestrials who are at that civilized manner. So for me, doing Sirius brought home the idea that, hey, we have a ton of problems at home that we're not willing to take care of. And one of them is this violence problem that Americans are just, I don't know, we're one of the most violent countries in the world. And why is it? Like, why are we just all of a sudden thinking that's the normal way? Why does capitalism tell us, oh, it's war that makes good economics? That doesn't make sense. I grew up in a hood. Like, there's no business trying to invest in where I was raised. So doesn't it make better sense if there was peace, more people would economically invest in inner cities around the downtown area, and that would raise property values and get more economics. And so Nursery Crimes is going to tackle that at the best level that we can handle it. And I'll plug the website real quick, because I'm just nurserycrimes.org. Go there, check it out, see what we're talking about, join the movement. It's very much in line with the SIRIUS movement. It's definitely, I know there's a ton of like gun owners out there who are worried about the guns right now. I'm a gun owner. The discussion that we're having is more to do with legitimate small changes that we can do to make our society more peaceful. And it isn't so much about, and Tim, I think you and I had a Facebook discussion one time back and forth, and just like, a lot of people are scared about a tyrannical government. But our idea is, if you are a law-abiding citizen and you're able to follow these 4 or 5 simple steps to owning and registering a gun, you can have any firearm you want. So I think Nursery Crimes is going to be a dynamic and powerful film, and hopefully we'll have announcements on that over the upcoming year.
Excellent. So check that out, people, nurserycrimes.org. I'm looking forward to see kind of how you put the solutions on the table after kind of showing us what the problems are from your point of view, because it is about solutions, and it's about finding a way to get people to choose peace. It's something we're going to have to choose. And I think you're completely right. They're obviously here, and when I say they, I mean extraterrestrials. They're obviously here. They've obviously been here, and they're obviously not being completely open about contact for a reason. It makes sense that there are peaceful civilizations who are waiting for us to figure that out. And it's going to be a challenge, because we know that our culture is being prompted towards violence for a number of reasons by people who want to keep things going the way they are. And I think that SIRIUS, I hope in the bottom of my soul that SIRIUS is able to blow the doors open, not just on UFO disclosure, but on free energy disclosure, because that is a linchpin. Once that comes out, once people know, 1, extraterrestrials are real, and 2, we don't need to pay these power companies, and we could definitely have abundant energy, at will, and be able to provide for the least of the people on this planet. And that's just cracking the surface. Anti-grav and water desalinization, and it just opens up Pandora's box of great stuff for planet Earth that allows us to choose peace, I think.
The biggest difficulty we had, and I'm going to try and say this in the most diplomatic way, in the most honest way that I can, because I believe the transparency is the best situation. The difficulty we had with SIRIUS was dealing with the human ego. What I mean by that is a number of people who are buying into capitalism in all of its glory, the way that it's fed them, or the way that it's always been for them. They're the ones that were standing in the way of us getting to true interviews with people who are doing groundbreaking things, like, for example, John Searle people here in Los Angeles. Like, we tried and attempted to go after and get the best evidence, get into the best laboratories possible. But you got to understand him, and especially the people listening, you got to understand that all of these people are coming to a table and elbowing each other off the table constantly. And they're doing it in such a way that they have a research lab and a bunch of, new energy stuff. So why go interview that guy? And then they'll stand in your way and find a way to dismantle what you're doing. That's what I meant about the politics of filmmaking. It's not so easy. I've probably received over maybe 200 emails from, new scientists that are attempting to do something or can show over Unity results. I mean, it's hard to deal with the politics of filmmaking. And that's me saying it the most diplomatic possible way I can say it. We're dealing with human ego, and that itself is continuously standing in the way of progress. It has a lot to do with the basic idea that there's an X amount of resources and X number of dollars that can go around, and I won't get the most of them. And that's the problem, because ideally, if we can debunk that thinking, a number of other things can happen. That's what I was dealing with even on this project as a director. I'm dealing with a ton of ego.
Well, Arm, thank you so much for your contribution to the future of this entire planet, because I got to believe that this project, Nursery Crimes, and whatever you do next they're going to make your kids' lives better. They're going to make my kids' lives better, and that's going to be better for everybody. And so your work is very appreciated. Please keep up what you're doing, and we hope to catch up with you down the line when this is all out, and at some point maybe have more of a spiritual conversation with you concerning your own spirituality.
Absolutely.
Well, one last thing, if we could. Let's talk about Sundance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, Tim, you said the 10 most nicest things to me in the world. I believe that you're just way too nice. I hope we can make a dent in some things, But in terms of Sundance, we premiered the trailer, which you guys got to see it, or other people who were on the inside, you got to see it beforehand. But we premiered it for the public at Sundance this year, and we took the SIRIUS trailer and we took it out. Thomas Jane was there, he played the lead role, hung on HBO, and he played the Punisher, if you guys remember that movie. And Steve was there. We sent Steve there. I wasn't able to go because I was working in an orphanage in Mexico. It was amazingly well connected. People got the feel of it. They understood that there's something that is a gravitas in the film, and it's moving people to think about the product. I always have to remind inside people, people have been doing work on this for a long time. You might watch the trailer and think to yourself, well, it's A, B, or C. But you got to remember the avatar we're going after in order to crack this open in the mainstream is completely different than the people who are on the inside. You guys are people who got to the information first. But we're trying to get to the people who are a little bit more hesitant to consider those, options. So we have to do it in a more clever way that appeals to them. And that's the conundrum. That's going to be the push and pull. And I can predict it from now to the future that there's going to be always internal paucity of people who knew about this stuff beforehand, who are going to look at SIRIUS a certain way. But I hope that they understand that our goal is to obviously appeal to the mainstream audience and get them more envelope into the knowledge, the information,
Hey, whatever you have to do to give this thing legs, the further that we can get this, the better. We really need everybody to know. People talk about, UFO disclosure, Medvedev in Russia is talking about it, and they're talking about it in South America. We need everybody on board. We need everybody to be talking about this and openly accept extraterrestrial reality. And until that happens, the powers that be are still going to have the truth under their thumb. We need to pull it out. And so if you need to, couch a trailer in a certain way, or even the film itself, so that it is accessible to more people, then by all means, brother, do it. We're behind you.
Thank you. And keep promoting it. Social media aspect of this is one thing that makes us as a documentary film completely different and unique than everybody, including Inconvenient Truth, which was funded by a bunch of people who already were propagandizing the situation. And we went after the truth, and you guys supported us, and we went after it hard as we could. And I think ultimately, I'm proud of the film. I think everybody in our production company, I know Steve is head over heels about the film. Ultimately, let's get as many people knowing the information. And I always have to leave people with the idea of, the nugget of thought that I have after, a year worth of meditation on this, because that's all that filmmaking is specifically, I don't even know if the powers that be know if these things exist. The political structure, the way it is, people blame government, but government, just like a big puppet show, they come in and out and they only know very terrestrial things. They know very black and white hard facts that they can see in front of them. They're more scientific now than they ever have been. They lack the spiritual creativity and understanding that there might be different realms of possibilities that we could tap into if we practice or study that. And then point two is if there are conspirators that are holding this information and knowledge back, it would be because they themselves would be scared of promoting something that would make them be ridiculed. The more power you do have, when somebody gives you information like that, just imagine, let's say, Tim, and I know you're doing well. Let's say you're a multi-billionaire, and you've been inducted into this fraternal order of secret society of the top 20 people that you know, and you guys all brainstorm and think tank together. And one of those guys says, I'm going to give you guys some crazy information. And he brings that ET in the room and shows you guys there's extraterrestrials out there, right? What would you do walking away from that? You're like a multi-billionaire. You walk away from that and you don't say to yourself, I'm going to promote this. I'm going to send this to everybody. You would think to yourself, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm perplexed. So I'm just going to follow the lead of what this guy told me to do. And this guy probably said to you, hey, I'm going to give you some information and some secrets, but I want you guys to never let this leave the room. you would just trust him. You would just be like, okay, he gave me that. He told me the craziest secret in the world, and I can't tell anybody. I'm gonna probably just die with this one because I don't know what it's gonna do to all this money I've accumulated. Are people gonna turn on me? Are people gonna think that I'm some kind of Satan because I deal with an ET being rather than these angelic Christ beings? Like what do you do if you're in that situation? It's a conundrum.
I suppose. I still think at the end of the day, the idealist in me might win out. Just because, and I think you share this, one, you obviously believe in transparency and giving the truth to anyone who would hear it. But just the idea of being separated from everybody doesn't jive with my worldview. And I think that in a reality where everything is just part of one thing, and then you're only hurting yourself in the long run by trying to keep something from someone else.
No, absolutely. You make a good point. Now, what if I said, we got the same scenario, but he doesn't bring an ET in the room and he just says it to you. He says that this is possible or this is potential. And he does this whole nebulous thing where he says, okay, now I want you to sit and meditate and all tap in, and my point is, the less firm it becomes, the less willing you are to risk your prestige on it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're of the mindset that releasing this is, going to put your wonderful life in jeopardy, then yeah, I mean, it's definitely a strong incentive to keep your trap shut. I get you.
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's why, I mean, ideally, maybe the one thing that we all have as a society have to accept is being angry with those who had already kept the secret for so long. If given that they have, the more anger we show to them, the less they'd be willing to let the secret out of the bag because they would realize that the ridicule would kill their livelihood, their speed, or anything else. If we were a culture of forgiveness and peace and understanding, I think we would be dealing with a much different situation right now, given the last 200 years.
Yeah, well, forgiveness could definitely be part of it, because if you are of the mindset that reality is really just everything is all one part of one thing, then even those guys are really just another part of you, and it behooves you to forgive them. And let's all move on together. Let's give each other peace. Let's give each other abundance. Let's give each other truth. And move into being a planetary civilization that is in contact with other planetary civilizations and join a galactic community and live and share with those who have gone before us.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better myself.
Oh, I bet you could.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Arm. Have a good evening. We'll talk to you down the road. Peace, brother.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to my interview with Amardeep Kaleka. I hope it's filled your heart with a little hope and maybe inspired you to be the change you wish to see in this world. This is just the beginning, guys, as I continue to bring you discussions that hopefully push humanity further toward a future that works for everyone. Please know that I'll also be working to bring them to you with the audio quality you and my guests deserve. We'll have it worked out long before Arm Kaleka returns to this show. To keep up on future podcasts, subscribe to email updates through the website at bravonewworld.blogspot.com. You'll find the email subscription panel at the upper right of the page. Plus, get news and discussions that really matter in your Facebook feed by liking the Bravo New World Facebook page at facebook.com/Bravo New World blogcast. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tim Bravo. Until next time, kids, keep your eye to the sky and your ear to the ground. We are all one. So namaste, and peace to us all.